today's video, I'm going to revisit and discuss more about bicep tension at full draw and how it helps clean up your release. For those of you that are new here, my name is Jake Kaminsky. I'm a two-time Olympic silver medalist in the sport of archery, and we're going to make this channel a great resource to all types of archery. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscription button and the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is uploaded. I'd appreciate it. So apparently I've lit a bit of a fire under some people online in regards to my most recent couple of videos. So I need to do a follow-up, and I'm going to do follow-ups of both separately. So then that way people at home can understand what I'm trying to say more. You know, a lot of these videos that I do produce, I'm not sure how well they will be or will not be received, or if they will or will not actually help anyone out there. So when videos like this come out, or I produce videos like this, sometimes it's just kind of an overview and it's not necessarily a super deep dive into the subject. So there are a lot of bits and pieces that were not necessarily included, were left out, and you know, some of the people that have commented, you know, have kind of misconstrued my statements a little bit, and I'm here to clean them up. So in this video, I'm going to cover the biceps tension one in regards to cleaning up your release and trying to end the pluck. So I'm going to explain a little bit more in depth on how it does help, why I suggested it, how much to actually squeeze the bicep, and give you a bit of a disclaimer and a bit of a caution on having too much bicep tension and what it can cause in the release and the shot itself. All right, so first let's talk about how much bicep tension was I talking about having. Now, I've talked a million times about intensity shot cycle, and how to use it properly within the sport of archery. So in a quick nutshell, I'll show you what intensity is again. This being 0, my hand is completely relaxed, and this being 10, I'm squeezing as hard as I possibly can. Now, very shortly after doing that, you start to lose blood flow in your hand and therefore feeling. So now that the feeling's coming back into my hand, I can close my hand with as little effort as 2 out of 10. If you were to have 0 and 10, this being 2, I can just close my hand with a 2. The point is, I can do what I am talking about with minimal effort, and if I overexert, I start to lose feeling, and there starts to be negating effects to what I'm trying to talk about. So the same thing applies to bicep tension while at full draw. I am squeezing my bicep no more than a 2 out of 10. Just a little bit of tension is enough. Now, I've already mentioned and covered why it's important and how you should maintain it through release and follow through. So if you haven't seen the first video where I talk about biceps tension, why it's important to a clean release, there'll be links in the description below, plus a card at the top here. Check that out before watching this video in its entirety, because you know, I don't want you to miss out on what I'm actually talking about, and that way you can reference what I'm talking about. So that is how much to actually squeeze the bicep. Again, the important part is keeping it all the way through release and follow through. Don't stop when the clicker clicks. Don't stop when you release. Don't stop when your release fires. Now, the next thing to talk about why I am suggesting to fire the bicep itself is because your opposing muscle, the tricep, which opens and extends your arm as opposed to the biceps closing the arm, is on the posterior chain of your arm, right? It's on the backside of your arm, which is really close to where the posterior delt attaches, some rotator cuff muscles, as well as some of the muscles that we are trying to use while using back tension. So when you say use your rhomboids, use your traps, use your lower traps, use the back side of your back muscles use more back tension, because your back is your posterior chain and your tricep is your posterior chain. It is very, very common for your central nervous system to confuse posterior here and posterior here. And if you're firing your tricep unnecessarily, that's where some of this flyaway can be coming from, because you're firing a posterior muscle as opposed to the anterior muscle, the muscle that flexes instead of the muscle that extends. That's why I mention at all using biceps tension, because it will turn off the extensor, the posterior chain on the tricep, and prevent this flyaway from happening. It's extremely common, and it's just the way the human body works. And because I say add a little bit of tension here, you'll relax back here. Now, if you go back to that other video and you reference the comments, a lot of people are saying, huh, that's interesting, I'm going to try it, I'll post my findings. And then they come back and say, holy cow, my release has never been cleaner. I've been struggling with this for years and years and years, and lo and behold, my release is magically better now. because it is that common. I've seen it happen so often, and that's why I made the video at all to begin with about adding the bicep tension. Now, there was a commenter that was discussing and talking about how if you have proper alignment, that your hand will naturally pull in against your neck and you'll have a tight, clean release. This is mostly true. I mentioned in a comment to that comment specifically that Brady Ellison is a bit of an anomaly when it comes to the alignment that he can get into, and that commenter responded saying, well, his alignment is just the same as Daryl Pace and Rick McKinney from back in the day, and yes and no. Yes it is, and no it's not. Yes it is in regards to talking about this shoulder, this wrist, that barrel of the gun alignment, that alignment from overhead. The alignment I am talking about is how far behind the arrow line the tip of his elbow can get, him being Brady Ellison. He can get so far behind the arrow line that, yes, the hand is naturally wanting to pull into the neck. So when the release happens, it stays tight because it's so far behind already. But Brady has an extremely high range of motion in both the muscle belly as well as within the joint space itself. He has extremely lax joints. If you've ever watched him stand leisurely talking to people, look at his knees hyperextend backwards like crazy because of how mobile his joints are. It really works to his advantage and helps him shoot higher scores because he can get into such a good position that really nothing can mess up his release unless it's a total collapse, which just doesn't happen when it comes to Brady at least. So the alignment is important, and the alignment will clean up your release, but I guarantee if my shoulders were in a bad alignment, I could squeeze my bicep and have a clean, tight release as well. Not ideal, of course. What would be more ideal is alignment to begin with. No doubt about that. But as far as the actual alignment that would really help clean up the release and really eliminate any sort of plucking, is difficult. It's difficult to get into. It takes years of training, years of stretching, years of building your muscle structure up, years of learning the body position. And it's so difficult. It's complicated, and it takes a lot of time. So in my experience, I've had decent alignment, and my release was nowhere near as clean as it is, and nor was my sight picture as stable as it is now without that bicep tension. And absolutely 100% Coach Lee advises bicep tension. I have to tell a little bit of a story to back this up so you can understand this, because you know it's a confusing subject. While at full draw, once you're at full draw and you have transferred, many times Coach Lee will mention and reference a steel chain, meaning your hook is on the string and back to here should be nothing but a steel chain, meaning it's just resisting tension and it conforms to whatever structure it gets pulled towards. It wants to just maintain its tension without kinking and binding and adding tension elsewhere to distract from the tension that should be in your back. He says steel chain from here to here. Okay, great in principle, but the way I applied it when I was being taught the method and very new to his method, we had a garage door that had a pull chain that would, raise and lower the door. So I went over and I literally went, look, steel chain, right? Yeah, steel chain. And he goes, yes. And I go, okay, I'm at full draw. I'm pulling, clicker clicks, I release. What happens to the steel chain? It falls. Because during that time, I was dealing with this going on. Like my hand was just flying away nonstop, every single shot. My elbow always moved back great, but my hand just went whoosh, 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 every single time, right? And he was grilling into us a steel chain at that point. Steel chain, it conforms to the position you're in. You're not adding that extra tension to disrupt the steel chain's positioning. And then when I thought, okay, steel chain, I release, the steel chain has no structure to hold it in that position that it was at full draw, okay? And he shook his head and said, no, you're too stupid, / actually too smart. Never mind, you're too smart, because when you're at full draw, when you transfer, you must weld each link together. Those links must now become one And then when you release, that position maintains and you just move back. So it is not a steel chain to let it fly away. It is a come to full draw, lock everything in place, maintain it through release and follow through. And that's where a good, tight, clean release comes from. And you can't have that without a little bit of bicep tension. Again, a 2 out of 10, that's all that's needed. Maintain it through release and follow through, and there won't be an issue. A word of caution is if your alignment is really bad and you're having this plucking, collapsing going on, don't just squeeze your bicep, because that's not going to fix anything, and in fact, you could actually injure yourself a little bit. So I would always advise making sure you go through everything within your shot cycle, including your alignment most of all, and then make sure you maintain that little bit of bicep tension, weld those links while you transfer, and maintain it through release and follow through. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, consider hitting the subscription button and the notification bell, as well as the like button. I would appreciate it. Also, please consider supporting my channel. If you head to my website, jakekaminsky.com, there'll be info and links on Patreon, apparel, books, and equipment sales, PayPal donate button, a P.O. box to send things to, and above all else, please share this video because there's no better advertising than word of mouth.